Hello. I know. Bob Saget too, Rupture Ready Warrior. No, we are just checking in. Got some time before something and thought, how are people doing? A lot of people have been expressing some sadness on the community channel. Thought we take a little bit, see how people are, if they feel like sharing with each other or chatting. From snowy PA. Might be snowing here in Brooklyn. It did last night, at least. But I know it's a sad day. Everyone's feeling a lot of emotions. Ha, Jared. Oh, that's funny. It's actually very last minute. It's not even, wasn't even planned. I was just like, oh, how is everybody? Thought I would come on briefly while I'm hanging out on a Monday night after watching the Nets lose to I don't know who we're playing. I think the Cavs. Anyway, Jamaica. Oh, the Google tribute, Mom looking up. Yes, that's very fun. If everybody hasn't done it yet, if you type Betty White's name into Google, they have like a very enjoyable Easter egg. It was neat. I enjoyed it. I like it when they do stuff like that. Am I heading to the movie theater? I'm personally not. Yeah, I'm curious if anybody went today. I wish I could have. Um, I actually I have a procedure that I'm doing on Thursday in the hospital, and so you have to pass a COVID test, which I did today, and so really couldn't do large indoor group activities. It was for the best not to. But I am curious if anybody did. They want to share in the chat how it was. I hope that maybe they re-release it or it does streaming somehow. I know it was just for today. I think Brooklyn only had like 3 showings, and I just couldn't do it. The timing was not my friend. But EC77, did you go? I'm curious. Hi, Zach. You did some volunteer work. What do you do for volunteering? I'm curious. I know, it's interesting. We've talked about it a lot on some Golden Grades and other things, how the show is very pro volunteering. The girls do all sorts of different activities. In Rose in particular, she wanted to win, you know, the best friends award, and people became very competitive over it. But I do think that volunteering is awesome. Um, I do volunteer myself. I volunteer an organization here called Pause and Why, and I walk dogs for elderly and disabled people who can't take care of their pets. So I enjoy doing that. And everybody's doing the Betty White Challenge today to give money to some kind of animal-related shelter organization. To that, I gave to my Pause today. Yes, long distance hugs. That's what we're here for right now, just for people to visit and say hello with one another. I don't know how long we'll be on, but I figure we could do a little bit. Yes, the Volunteer Vanguard Award. Virtual reading. Yes, right, because we can't still do it in person. Until your voice cracked. What books did you read? Lisa McNally. What kind of cheesecake? I'm always interested in the kinds of cheesecake everybody has when they have cheesecake. And watch the Golden Girls. Do you have a specific episode you were interested in watching? I know. Um, I guess you could do a piece of cake. Gosh, Old Friends, Great Expectations, Once Insane. I mean, there's some really good Betty-centric episodes, Rose-centric episodes. I'm curious what other people would choose as their episodes to watch. I would probably. I mean, also some of them are sad. Jonathan Myers, L.A. Law. I actually, I went through a weird phase as a child that I really liked L.A. Law. Because it was on for some reason. I want to say like TNT or something after dinner when I was like maybe 10 or 11 years old, and I watched it. I don't know why, honestly. But I did. Yeah, Corbin Bernstein, right? And the Eikenberries, Jill Eikenberry and her husband, somebody else. It's a short man, right? Uh, Charlie, Sophia, Martin Luther King Day stuff. Yes, I mean that is true, Grace. That is sharing the same spot. I don't want to forget that as well. Very important, especially how important it was to Betty. Equal the Oh, hmm. Betty's last book, Carol Burnett, Oh, you really and To Kill a Mockingbird. I'm impressed that you got through all. That's an impressive amount of reading. I I did get to pick this up. I haven't read it yet, but did anybody get this? I was at Michael's actually this weekend. Today's Monday, Saturday, and it was the only one left. I hadn't actually found one around here because it's weird in New York City. The registers at the grocery stores and stuff don't actually carry magazines very often. And then, I mean, you could go to like a magazine in the city actually has them, but not much here in Brooklyn. Uh, like an outside magazine newspaper stand, but they're not easy to come by. You'd have to like kind of hunt one down. So I happened to see this, and I snatched it. I snatched it up, I suppose. And I haven't really opened it. You know how adorable that is. Has anybody read this? I didn't. I feel very lucky that I got to pick this up. Strawberry or turtle? Is turtle cheesecake the one with like peanuts? Turtle, I think. Yeah, I mean it's hard to pick like a very specific, and I mean it's interesting. We were going through because we were going to host Golden Girls birthday bingo for Betty on Thursday, but because of COVID, we actually postponed it to February. We had a really hard time picking the episodes out to represent her, partly because we found many of the episodes are kind of sharing plot lines. There's not many like Barry Rose front and center. When we like there's like a little romance, and isn't it romantic? And like I said, Once in St. Olaf, Great Expectations. Then there are just some ones that you're like just have really funny kind of few scenes, but maybe aren't super Rose story heavy. So it's hard to pick. Yeah, Sean Lewis, Danny Tanner. I remember growing up on Full House too. It was it was very sad that he passed away. Bob Saget was a very funny comedian. Oh yes, Grace Noel, The Way We Met is that episode. I liked it too. And that, I mean that has obviously very classic scenes. I think that's a good one. We've considered that. Henny Penny. Yeah, the murder mystery. Those are really old friends. Jared, right? That's the right. Yeah, that was the one with Jenny Lewis and Fernando. But yeah, I think a lot of people have talked about how they've been sad. Look at these, are adorable. You see these? My lighting is terrible because I'm just actually in my living room, not set up for anything extraordinary. So a lot of people talked about Hot in Cleveland. I have to admit I don't know that as well. Oh yeah, we were talking about Can't Go Wrong with One for the Money. I did watch a bunch of like Hot in Cleveland bloopers, but I didn't have TV when it came out, I hear. So it was hard to come by because it wasn't on streaming. And I don't actually, to be honest, I don't know if it's on streaming now, the Hot in Cleveland. Caramel and Nuts, Lisa. Okay, that's right. It had caramel in it. Okay. Is the tribute movie going to be available anywhere else? Sneak D, I don't know. I've not heard that it's going to be available anywhere else. I have to imagine that at some point they would release it. It would seem kind of a loss for it to just go into the movie theaters and then disappear into the world, never to be seen again. I have not seen anything about it. I know it was just one day only, whereas like when they did the Golden Girls anniversary episodes in the fall, there was multiple days. It's a weird thing. Like I think they will eventually, maybe like since Hulu has the Golden Girls and the Golden Palace now, maybe they would be the ones to probably get it. I would think first, if possible. Yeah, Game and Watching. I should. I don't know. Is Hot in Cleveland? I should look it up on a streaming platform. I should. I should check. I don't know. Andrew, my brother, my father. I know my brother, my father is glorious. Uh, Dorothy had a dream that she was on Jeopardy. Oh yes, Jonathan. That's questions and no, not questions and answers. Yes, I think you're talking about questions and answers because she was trying out for that one's also a funny one. Like I like it. Um, Music and news, keeping it real. Yeah, no, I just think this would be fun for people to kind of get together and chat a little bit. Kelsey, what's my opinion on Golden Palace? Mm, I understand, like when you think about it from a production financial perspective, it made sense for them to want to continue the franchise on. Uh, the Golden Girls was an extraordinarily popular property. It went on for 7 seasons. It was winning Emmys. It was a lot of accolades for comedy. So, the way that uh, nowadays, oh yeah, Game of Thrones is going to have all these spin-offs, right? The Walking Dead have all these spin-offs. Frasier was a spin-off from Cheers. You're just talking about like television wise, I mean also movie wise, but it made sense for them to want to not lose that property. And you kind of, there's only so much time you have between something ending and it losing its hold, on popular culture. Things moved obviously much slower then because they didn't have like the lifespan of a tweet the way that we do now, or how like a story on Instagram is only alive for 24 hours. But they knew that they only had a certain amount of time in which to capitalize. So I get that from a financial perspective. That absolutely made sense. Uh, from a creative perspective, it's not a great show. Music and News Keeping It Real has Golden Palace on his channel. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, now that's available on Hulu, people are obviously revisiting it. You know, I think B. Arthur, you can consider uh, Dorothy as the main character in a way, right? She's the majority of the plots. B. Arthur, while Betty White was a big name, her fame hadn't really started until the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and then she came into the Golden Girls in her 50s, right? So B. Arthur was the lead name, and her loss is significant. The show tried to replace her with several smaller characters. We're like talking John Cheadle and the kid and the other stuff. It doesn't really work, not as a 4-person structure because of the archetype. So from that point of view, even if they just slotted another version of B and they called her like Sally. No, actually, there was Sally. Sure, it's Big Sally. So let's say they called her. My grandma was named Bertha. So we'll say like they put Bertha in some. People say Debbie Reynolds, Cloris Leachman, right? Like some version uh, of that type of actress takes over. It probably would have worked better, but people loved the dynamic of the original 4, and so when you lose that, you lose an essence of the show, and it wasn't as funny. And then, I mean, stuff like bringing Miles to then get married to somebody, like it it lost the things that was loved about the show. The premise was solid. I get it. Like it could be funny, them running the place, but the dynamic definitely changed. It became a different show. Um, it just didn't really work as well. And it's unfortunate. I mean, I think, B's loss clearly was the like the biggest systemic problem was just the loss of the Dorothy or Dorothy-esque character. Yeah. What do we say here? I was talking forever. My whole life is an open book. Lisa, you don't think you've ever seen every episode? It's funny because I doing Golden Grades. I'm like, oh, I forgot that was an episode. There are 180 episodes, right? And like, of course, there's probably like the 50 ones like that are kind of iconic and that everybody really know. 50 being, and then there's some I'm just like, oh, I totally forgot that was even a storyline. There's just chunks where I'm just like, oh, right, that was a thing. Courtney, was the original title the Golden Palace? Bertha then came up with the Golden Girls. No, the original title was not the Golden Palace, but you are correct that at some point Susan Harris had an original working name for it. Off the top of my head, I don't remember it. If I don't think about it, I can probably remember it in that way, like when I focus on it. Been watching the Golden Palace and seeing it with fresh and older eyes. Some really funny lines, but it doesn't glow. Yeah, that's a good way of describing it. What Fresh Hell is, it doesn't glow. Um, it's just not the same. And the actresses, they can only do the best. And I mean, you also have to consider, we didn't really mention it just now. Estelle Getty was sort of losing it. She was losing it towards the end of the Golden Girls already. That's demonstrated fact. She was having, she had terrible stage fright to begin with, but she was like dropping lines and having even more uncomfortable experiences where they were just having to do reshoots without the studio audience in there. And so asking her to then continue to do another whole series, that wasn't going to work in the long run. So I think that also plays a factor that we don't really talk about. Favorite Lowe's line was Blanche and Rose. I thought you were a slut. So sad what happened to Estelle. Her energy not seem as good on the spinoff. Yeah, music and news. I agree. And I think that was definitely partly due to what was happening to her health. And so, like, then you're asking two people who obviously professionals, great timing, to carry a show that's in a structure that's really meant for four people. It just wasn't going to work. Do you think the show would have worked as well if Betty had been Blanche and Rue had been Blanche? Yeah. Just one of those things that, like, it's so hard to consider what the show would have been because we've had decades of what it really was. I think that Betty has a proven track record to be the vamp tramp character. I don't think she could have been Southern. I don't think that really worked well with Betty's aesthetic and looks. They probably would have had to change that, and that would have maybe made it a little different. Because the Sue Ann Evans, she's like the happy homemaker, right? So there's a different personality there inside of that, like sexual heathen. So I think it could have been done. I think it just would have been very different. It likely would have worked. I mean, if you think I'll keep all things the same, like the actual content, the writers, like if everything stayed the same and they just had switched, it probably would have worked. Just turns out that, they didn't. And I think actually they probably did make the better choice. These two playing against what had been their type at the time. I know that I like this version of it, but I could see a world in which they had been switched and it would have been okay. Yeah, she was struggling, Robin, to remember her lines. And I think that, when we watch Golden Palace, we have to keep that in mind. Betty playing against type after a huge hit in Mary Tyler Moore was a great shock that helped. Yeah, Popland, I think that's true. I think anytime somebody plays against type and they do it well, uh, um, it makes it even more enjoyable because, you're like, well, I only saw you as blank, and now you're something that I did not at all consider. And also, I mean, if you think about the way they portrayed blank, like in the outfits, right? When we think of Mary Tyler Moore, Sue Evans, it obviously was a different era, so the clothing was less sexualized in the way that Blanche is wearing the plunging necklines and talking about not wearing underwear and like cleavage and other the negligee type. She's only going to sit in an inch of water, but when you think of Betty White, like there is her ability to be childlike, and then just in general, when you realize in everyday regular life, like when she's outside of just being in the Golden Girls, but in uh, people pointing to Lake Placid, or when she's with late night hosts or doing some skits with SNL and stuff, like just being herself. She's quite, dirty. What's called dirty comedian, and like she liked to swear and she liked to talk about her drinking, and so I think the humor, like underneath, I think there's also that, when she kind of got a little, like when she would do that, like, you know, uh, she calls Blanche a hypersexual bitch. Like that is actually probably true to who Betty White was, kind of like her attitude and her humor and her approach to things. And so, I mean, when you watch the bloopers in Hot and Cleveland, she swears, like she does all those things. And I think that is also funny. Like when she plays against type as in Sue Evans, she's actually also playing against type of who she is as a person, which I very much enjoy as well. Funniest joke from the Golden Palace, Sophia's prank on Rose. Yeah. They just didn't replace the Arthur well enough. I think that was like a huge factor in it. The actors, Danny Art, hello. The actors obviously influenced the character direction over time too. So the chicken egg, yeah. Kelsey asks, how long do you think the average sitcom should last? Because to me, The Nanny ended just the right time, and I don't think The Golden Girls could have gone for 12 seasons. The Golden Girls definitely could have gone on for 12 seasons. It's funny you mentioned The Nanny. Danny Art's here, my beloved friend, and also a fan of The Nanny. I was a huge fan of The Nanny. I also watched that show with my grandmother all the time. In the end, it was like kind of like, are they going to get together once The Nanny and Mr. Sheffield get together? It kind of becomes a different show. It's kind of like in that moonlighting, like the pining isn't part of the humor. And so when we finally get that release of the tension that's been building, it transforms it. And so I actually think that The Nanny might have gone on a little too long. It can only get so far. I probably maybe would have cut it by a season or two, frankly. Golden Girls came out in 1985, and it ran for 7 seasons. Comedies that time, like 5 to 7 seasons was a good life, a good run, a solid thing. I think that the modern television era, which I suppose would be like probably, I'd say like maybe the last 20 years, but you can point to certain things like Frasier went on for a very long time. Cheers went on for a very long time. These outliers. The lifetime of a show is dependent upon audience, money, and return of investment. And I think that when comedies go on for that long, they're not as solid. Like maybe in like the last season or two you might have like a gem of an episode, but 12 would be just too much. There's just, I mean, even look at the Golden Girls in like last season, there were some really solid episodes, like Case Libertine Bell, Midwinter Night, really great. I don't think that that's peak season. I think you could say like season 4 maybe was like, some of like peak Golden Girls seasoning, maybe some of 3. I think that you reduce to kind of the repetitive structures of the comedy, and it's just there are only so many jokes you could tell, and only so many ways you could tell it, and there are only so many storylines, and I think 7 was probably the best. 8 maybe, but I nowadays shows go on for a very long time. Um, the Walking Dead I just referenced earlier being one of the long runs, but I think Frasier and Cheers come to mind. Curb Your Enthusiasm, though it took a break and came back. It's it's only so funny for so long. And I think that sometimes that things live on longer than they should because of the investments of the actual organizations that are like producing that, right? Like NBC and HBO and stuff. Like they want to milk the profit out as long as they can, and they will go until it no longer makes sense for them financially. So I think from that perspective, the Golden Girls probably could have gone on for like another year, maybe not much beyond that. And I just personally, I don't think I don't find myself laughing or enjoying as much when it starts to get onto the really long stuff. Betty, you were year 7. Friends, yes, Friends went on for a very long time too. Actually, you've never watched Friends, and I'm okay never to. Um, just, I'm so sorry to say it. I'm not sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry at all that I didn't really watch Friends. Um, Betty made her last on-screen appearance in documentary about her life. Yes. Happy birthday. Denise Stoney, happy birthday. Luis, thank you so much. Well, thank you for joining. I just thought people might like a little chance to share some Betty love and have a little opportunity to gather. I like these questions. I think it's interesting. I love talking about things like this. Betty's husband said that she was like Sue Ann, except Betty couldn't cook. Yeah, when you watch the Alan and the Betty stuff, it's quite enjoyable. They really uh, they have a love, like a deep affection and affinity for one another. Chris says, I love the Golden Girls. It was a very beautiful, sweet, amazing show. Rest in peace. Absolutely. Popland says Golden Girls haven't lost the magic with the loss of their director and the writing. Yeah, I think Golden Girls lasted about as long as it should have, says Nocturne. I would have loved a live episode. Oh, Popland's funny. I think, those, I remember a couple shows did it. I want to say that I recall Arrested Development, and there may be one or two other ones that like the live production became a thing. I don't know if Schitt's Creek did one. I don't think so, but I could be wrong. I don't know. I agree with a lot of people in here saying that 7 seasons was about right, and I mean I do actually think that 7 seasons was about right. Dorothy's wedding dress was ugly. Oh, music and news. It just felt like that the ruffles reminded me of toilet paper holders. It's like somebody took them and that's what they used in order to create the design. Danny R asked, did anyone donate to an animal shelter today? Zach G, who may or may not be here, earlier talked about he volunteered. He read to virtually to elderly people. I know I said that I did to, my organization Paws, my dog walking. I think that it doesn't, well, I mean, it gets covered a lot, but I think, her love of animals was profound, and I just I think it doesn't get enough. Maybe it is right now, but like in the show, like in our 31 fan favorites, we did like a couple, like we did talk about like we did one with Jake when she gave away the dog. Love it. I think that could have been interesting to have more animals on the show. I would have liked, what would they have had if they had a real pet? I mean, granted, they needed a housekeeper out of the blue for no real reason because they talk about like how messy it was, but that place was not messy. So I still don't understand that situation. Robin's going to remember Betty and the other ways fondly. Yeah, short clips. Sometimes it's an investment to watch a whole episode when you just want to watch a couple of things that get you. Oh, Mr. Peepers. I like Mr. Peepers. Stan, Newsman hated Stan. See, actually, I hated Miles more than I hated Stan, quite frankly. Uh, I always make sure to donate whenever I go to Petco. Oh yes, Betty, when you go to Petco and they're like, "Would you like to add on like $2 to your bill?" I think it's like I add $2 onto my bills as well. Poplin's cast passed away 08, 09, 2010. I mean, Betty made it a very long time, and I did recall. I don't know if anybody saw the last, like the last one of the last pictures. I'm gonna say last because the one that we've been made aware of that's been shared. Um, and she she looked happy and she was healthy, and it was taken December 20th, I think her assistant said. Uh, she did. She lived a really, really long time. I hoped I could live to 100. Somebody I was out Friday with a friend of mine, and she knows that I'm a Golden Girls fan, as we all are. But I think that the thing that I actually love the most, and I've seen a lot of people sharing about it, is just, you know, Betty lived to 99. She saw, I can imagine the things that she saw change. I mean, like from radio to black and white to color television. Just the extraordinary span of her career, but just like her life as a person. Could you imagine, like, starting off when you're like having a switchboard operator like connect you to somebody that you like can't just pick up a phone and call, right? And then like in a kind of like Disney carousel of progress way, like she went from like that to cell phones, right? Because the things that wars that the changes in popular culture, and her fights for equality and acceptance. I mean, the things that she saw, and the things that she experienced, and like being able to be like, oh, I remember when, like, she 100% she could have said, like, it blows my mind. And when they talked about, some people have talked about her interviews, and they asked her about, like, is she afraid of dying, like she was being asked, like she was working at 89 at Hot in Cleveland. I did not realize, like, 89. I mean, also it's just kind of funny when we think about the Golden Girls. They were in their 50s. People like to point out, like, they're supposed to be in their 50s then, and like the difference of Blanche's 50 and, like, say Jennifer Aniston's 50 now. But the length of time that she was alive, and the changes she saw and experienced it and got to bring forward, and we talk about her love of animals and her deep love of her husband Alan, and he passed away quite long ago, and she lived a long time without him. And the sassy, swearing lady that lives underneath, but also the perpetually optimistic person that she really was. That when you hear people talk about her, and the idea, like, of The Secret, when she talked about the way her mother described somebody dying, that they know the secret now, uh, is really one of the most beautiful expressions of death that I think I've ever heard. Right. I don't know if people are familiar with it, but yeah, Mike, the 1918 pandemic was only a few years before she was born. Like, she was born at the tail end and the repercussions of the pandemic, like people changing and like everything that happened out of it. And then ended up like 100 years later, essentially, like, right, there was another pandemic. That's kind of crazy to think about, like, pandemic to pandemic and like everything that was in between. Oh, Sandy. Hello. Chai Chicana, don't worry. Your English is great. Sandy is absolutely right. Blanche is nearly 5 years older than Dirk. Maybe in dog years. But the idea of, like, the secret, right? And like, I gotta be honest with you. I don't have that in me. I do not have that, like, beauty, that positivity, that, I don't want to call it a sense of wonder, but when she explained it and she talked about her mother and the, like knowing the secret, I even like at 89, 90 years old, she was like, "Oh yeah, they know this," and I'd be terrified. I'm 36 and I'm terrified. Danny Hart knows this, but I'm terrified of dying at this age. I don't know what I'm going to do when I'm getting older. I don't, and I don't think I have that calmness and wisdom and beauty in me the way that she did. And so I do find the idea of the secret to be one of the most extraordinary expressions of death. And everybody now they're like, "Oh, she knows the secret," and it's like deep, deep mystery, like the last of the mystery. Uh, Mikey, oh yeah, glad you were able to make it. It was a very last minute decision. I was like, "Oh, I'm just sitting here," so I don't know how much longer we'll be on, but yeah, maybe like let's say we'll try and get to like 7 o'clock. It's 6:53 now. I eventually have to eat dinner. Uh, but yeah, music and keeping it real. I agree. I didn't think of it that way, but pandemic to pandemic, right? And she did come back at 88. Come back at 88, right? Like, could you? I was like, I'm tired to get up for my job, and I'm 36. Could you imagine? At 89 years old, she's working hot and clean. And it's the same amount of work. She is a full-time cast member. She's got to get up. She's got to do the read-through. She's got to do the dress rehearsal. They've got to do like the. She did that for a full run of yet another show. That's like the work ethic. I can't. I can't even comprehend. I don't. I prefer never to work again. And she's like, sign me up at 89. Oh, Sandy, it's 3:54. I'm in Brooklyn and it's 6:54, admittedly. I'm an East Coaster. And Arthur Duncan, Danny, you're right. Like, she was like, okay, then I just don't. I'm done. I don't need this. Like, if you can't stand up for what's right and are going to try and hold me back from it, then I guess this is it. And I respect that. And she was about giving opportunity, and she was about having representation. And somebody pointed out today, I saw something about somebody saying like, can stand up for oppressed populations, be an ally, doesn't have, like secret skeletons in their closet, not like, sexually harassing and assaulting, and like a lovely human being that everybody's just like, she was giving and she was kind and she was caring. And you could be that. You can be Betty White. You can be, caring, volunteering, lifting people up. It's possible. Betty White shows us it's possible. It's it's no excuses. If Betty can do it, then we can all do it. Mikey says, I still can't believe that she had a show before I had Lucy. Right? I think the span of her career. And then between like doing like Password and Pyramid, I mean, what was she not working? That's, I think, the amount of time she was not working was just, I guess, sleeping, because it sounds like she was nonstop. And she gave us extraordinary shows. I mean, it's in interviews, they're talking about like, yeah, you think of Mary Tyler Moore, you think of the Golden Girls, and you really know of Hot and Cleveland as like the benchmark. And this was, let's point this out. She wasn't doing these shows at like 22 years old. It was like 40. I think it was 40. Let's use it as a benchmark, is when like her fame started to kick in. Hello? Yeah, life after 40? She had another 60. Like her career was 60 years, from 40 to 100. Like, I can't even fathom. Like, you're like, oh, I'm 23 and I haven't published my novel. There's nothing. No, come on. Look at her showing you it can be done. Music, I hope you have a great potty. Robin says a grand example role model. She was an absolute role model. Mikey's turning 40 in 8 months. Mikey, I think you're gonna have a life after. I think you got this. But right, like sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm not doing like enough, and then I'm like, oh, I'm a failure. I'm like, you compare yourself to people in your field or things that's happening in of ages, and you're just like, I guess I'm done. I shouldn't even start. And she was like, okay, everybody, 40's here. Let's, And I mean, not that she wasn't working beforehand, right? But like she credits her success to the back half of her life. And also, like, let's point out, right? Like she was all of the women, Betty, B, uh, Estelle, Rue. I mean, let's even like Mary Tyler Moore. Like you even go like Valerie Bertinelli and like Jane Leeves, right? Like all of these women who were middle aged. Like a lot of the humor around being like, "Well, I'm not 15. Oh, okay, 15 is very young. Like, I'm not 24 anymore." And like what it's like to be an older woman. You ever really hear stuff about her like? Do you find like? And maybe the stuff out there, and I didn't get to go to the documentary today, which would be interesting, but like she was like, this is who I am, this is how I look. I'm not getting plastic surgery, I'm not going on an insane diet. Like this is it, this is what you get. And I really appreciate and respect that too, because the idea of like conforming, I don't know what this was. This extra air quotes, being extra, but right, like she loved her hot dogs. But no, I mean, genuinely, it was just like, this is it. This is who I am, and was showing like she believes she's good enough. She is good enough, uh, deserving and worthy of all of the praise and love. And like, so different now, like so different. Uh, but I appreciate it. She's just like, yeah. I mean, Rue talks a little bit about weight in the Golden Girls. I think because she was the sexy vamp, and that's a bit different for her. But just doing her thing, not having to be different because she was good enough the way she was. I think that's also an important lesson. Watch the Disney World Celebration from 1986. I'll have to check that out. John, going to the documentary. I hope you enjoy it. You should let me know how it is. I wish I could have attended today, but I couldn't. The Golden Girls episode where Rose is Lily's sister. I'm not Team Lily, not going to lie. 50, Tornado Souls, interesting name. Are you a tornado because of all the souls, or are you a tornado that picks up souls along the way? Just curious. Robin's going to be 60. You're great. You're amazing. Mom is 78. Mikey, love it. Poplet, she did show how to be confident and humble. Get Betty. Tornado. I respect it. Sign Betty on. We got her there. Also, Facebook. Remember when Facebook was a place that you could like go to without it being terrifying? Just saying. It's 7:01, so we're probably gonna do. Oh, Betty James, I was saying we're gonna be ending soon, but happy work. Is work ever happy? Maybe for Betty it was, but I'm glad that we were able to. We had some people come through, enjoying it. A lot of people. Oh, a Megadeth song. Okay. I missed out on that. I did not realize that. I thought you were going to have a bingo live. Oh, I wish. No. Bingo is not something that we are able to. We were going to have it in person on Thursday in her honor, but because of COVID, we wanted to be safe. And we've postponed it until February. But bingo live, I wish. No, it's because of the cards. Like we have physical cards that you use. It's not something that's conducive to virtual play. And I really, I wish it were different, but no. And also just, I think it's just chatting and doing. Robin, I'm glad you enjoy. She did make How to Others laugh. That's so true. Mikey, I'm glad you caught it too. But yeah, but I might, John, I hope you enjoyed the show. I don't know anybody else who's gone or going. All of my friends here, because of COVID and other stuff, we just had to pass for right now. Also, everyone wearing their, I got my Dorothy, my heck yes, y'all, so soft sweatshirt on. Maybe look like a big collar there. But anyway, Mikey, I feel you on that. That totally makes sense. But thank you all for coming. I hope you have a great rest of your Monday. Always that people are in the community section of the channel chatting and hanging out. Oh, you can find each other there too. An email. It's just a last minute thing. I probably could go eat dinner. Very exciting. Grace Golden Girls clips. Yeah, I guess I should work on some videos. But yeah, I thought it would be fun just to do something like this instead of putting on a. Oh, Mike, Danny Hart knows what I'm having for dinner. I have like the same thing every night of the week. Partly because I don't cook, but also because I love ravioli. Not gonna lie. But thank you all for joining. You always, if you need anything, yes, maybe some sliced bread. Maybe I'll have some Gefluken cake. I was gonna say I could have some Sperhoven Krispies, but I'm not. I don't bake. I don't do anything. But okay. Yes, take care. Mittens is not a cat. Then what is Mittens? Oh no, John. No, we weren't gonna. Um, Partly because of COVID, we just no. It just decided it was just safer this way. We can't in good conscience do that, unfortunately. Danny Arts, Sperhoven Krispies. Yeah, maybe after the revs. Okay, friends. Thanks for joining. Hey, Evan. Do you want to say hi? No, you don't. Evan's never. Okay. Actually, none of your fan club's here. But if you just want to be a hand, maybe they'll see it later. And then this is the closest they've ever come to seeing Evan. Ashley, she's devastated, I bet. Okay. Bye, friends. Wave, Evan.